This is Dr. Vichya talking about genetics. Today we are going to learn the second part of heredity and environment chapter, where we are going to concentrate on norm of reaction, experiments on potentilla plant, and then experiment on inheritance of fur color in Himalayan rabbit. In the first session, we learnt about concept of genotype, phenotype and phenocopy, and today we are going to continue with that and learn about the norm of reaction and some experiments and the role of environment and heredity. Terminology: clone, pure line and norm of reaction. Heredity and environment, which is more important? I think you know in genetics both heredity and environment have an equal role to play, and both are very important. The phenotype of an organism at any given time is a result of the interaction of the genotype and the environment. Environment includes both the past and the present environment. So both are absolutely necessary. Now, environmental variations. When two individuals which has the same genotype, when they differ externally, and that is because of the environmental factors, and this is known as environmental variations or environmental modifications. When two individuals they differ in the heredity, that is the genetic makeup or the genotype of two individuals, though they may be very closely related or they may be the children of the same parents, when they differ from each other because of the genes which they have got, which are different, and the variation because of genes are called as hereditary or genotypic variations. In man, only identical twins have the same genotype, and remaining all the human beings have a different variation in genotype, and that is called as hereditary or genotypic variation. Today we are going to learn about two experiments. One is the inheritance of pattern of hair color in Himalayan rabbit and the effect of the temperature on the hair color. This is the Himalayan rabbit. This is how it looks. This is generally present in the Himalayan region, and then it is white in color with the pink eyes, and then only at the ear, the tip of the snout, the tail and the tip of the feet has the black fur, and remaining part it is covered by the white fur. This is the true breeding or the pure line Himalayan rabbit. So even after many generations, generation after generation, breeding also will produce the same type of Himalayan rabbit. Then it is a white body. It has white body with pink eyes. Feet, tail and ears are black. Now we are going to do two experiments. One part in the first experiment, fur is plucked from the back of the Himalayan rabbit, and after plucking the fur, the animal is kept in the cold place, the temperature where the environmental temperature is less than usual, and so the new fur develops. When the new fur develops, instead of the white colored fur which has to develop, it develops the black colored fur, which you can notice in this. Here, a part of the white fur is removed, and then it is packed with the ice cubes. I think which you can notice in the blue pack. It has ice cubes in that. So the temperature is reduced in that area where the white fur was removed. Then when the new fur develops, we can clearly notice that is what was expected was the white fur, but now it has the black fur on the back. Now this is the first part of the experiment, that is we have removed a part of the white fur and the temperature is reduced. when the temperature of the environment is reduced, instead of the white, we can see the black fur developing in that area. Then the second part of the second experiment is we are going to remove we are going to remove the black fur either from the feet or from this area. We are going to remove the black fur from the black part, and then the temperature is increased by putting a bandage or by keeping the animal at a little bit higher temperature than the usual. So in the second experiment setup, what we are going to do is we have removed the black fur from this part, and then the animal is kept in a room where the temperature is slightly higher, or else this area will be covered by a cloth, so increasing the temperature. When that is done, we can notice that instead of the black usually expected fur, they develop the white fur. So here you can notice that in these two experiments which we conducted, that is when the black part is removed and it is kept warm, then that new fur develops is white rather than the black. So initially when we notice the Himalayan rabbit, which is a true breeding variety, so even after many generation after generation, the color pattern remains same. So we assumed that the color pattern is inherited. But after conducting these two experiments, it clearly indicates that what is really inherited is the ability of certain parts to form the pigment or not to form the pigment, depending on the particular temperature observed in that part at the time of growth of the fur. So any character, this also leads us to the conclusion that any character is a product of heredity and environment. Now we will enter into one more concept, that is norm or range of reaction. Norm or range of reaction, the diverse phenotypes that may arise from interplay between a given genotype and various environments in which this genotype may live constitute the norm or range of reaction of that genotype. This can be understood with an example as follows. Now what we are going to do is we are going to learn about an experiment with a particular plant called as Potentilla glandulosa. See, what is norm of reaction is they have the same genotype, but when the same genotype plant is put in different environments, the phenotypic characters are different. This experiment was done in California by Clausen, Keck and Heasley. They used Potentilla glandulosa, which grows naturally at 3 different altitudes. One is at the sea level. The same plant grows even at 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. And there is an alpine variety which used to grow at 10,000 feet above the sea level. Now coming to the characters of this plant, the sea level, the climate is normal, mild winter and long summer, and the plant had a long stem, large leaves, and 200 days it took to flower. Then at mid-level plant, 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level, winters are cold, summers are warm. The plants which are noticed naturally at 4,000 to 5,000 feet were taller, slender, and it took 50 to 60 days for flowering. The one which is there at 10,000 feet, that is the alpine variety, wherein the climate is like this, wherein the winters are very long and severe and summer is very short and cold. That alpine variety plant was a dwarf plant. It was a very short dwarf plant, and it took 55 days to flower. This is the Potentilla glandulosa at sea level. You can make out the characters, and then this is the Potentilla glandulosa at 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level, and this is the alpine variety which is relatively dwarf. Now an experiment is done wherein a particular plant, think we can look at this particular diagram. See, what is done is, this is the naturally grown plant Potentilla glandulosa at sea level. This is the one which grows naturally at 4,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level, and this is the one which grows naturally at alpine zone or 10,000 feet. This is the phenotype of the plants grown at different altitudes. Now, in this experiment, to understand the influence of the environment on the genotype, what these scientists did was, they took this plant and then they divided it into three. One part, the same genotype when it is present, then it is called as a clone. So this plant is divided into three, and each of these clones are planted at different altitudes. One part of the plant was planted at sea level, the second one was planted at 4,000 to 5,000 feet, and the other one at 10,000 feet. So in this vertical row, all the plants have the same genotype. Among these three, you concentrate on these three, they have the same genotype. And what are the variations which we notice in the phenotype of these three is because of the environment. So at 10,000 feet we can see it is a stunted growth, and at 4,000 to 5,000 feet the plant is greatly reduced, but still okay. So this variation, the same genotype, the plants with the same genotype, when they are exposed to different environmental variations, the variations which result is called as the norm of the reaction. So likewise in the middle row, when you compare these three, you can notice this is the normal natural occurring plant at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. This is divided into three. So out of these three, one clone is planted at sea level, another one at 4,000 to 5,000 feet, and another one at the alpine zone. So when we notice the variation, and that is the norm of the reaction, or we can notice that it is okay. Particularly the mid-level variety is okay with at both the sea level and at the alpine zone. And coming to the alpine zone, this plant Potentilla glandulosa, which grows naturally at 10,000 feet, is divided into three, and one is planted at sea level and another one is planted at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. And the one which is planted at sea level dies, it will not grow at all, whereas the one which is planted between 4,000 to 5,000 feet, it shows a greatly stunted growth. So these variations, they have the same genotype in these three plants. The variations which results because of the environment is called as norm of reaction, or the range of the reaction. This is the definition. You can just go through this. The diverse phenotypes that may arise from the interplay between a given genotype and various environments in which this genotype may live constitute the norm or range of reaction of that genotype.